Hi, my name is Joshua Colden, and a number of people have asked me to show a quick demo about the real-time programming that we're doing on the C4 platform that shows off some of what you can do with QML and Qt. C4 has a lot of pretty exciting new technologies. It's a desktop application with a cloud engine. It also has a web interface. And it allows you to collect and archive your photos, communicate with other people on photos and interact across the internet in real time, and be able to just work with photos a lot more smoothly by leveraging the cloud and the desktop for what each aspect is very good at. So I'll give you a quick little teaser of what's happening with C4, and then I'll show you how we're doing some exciting stuff with real-time programming to make it all happen. So first of all, let me create a login. Okay, and I'm logged in. And over here, you'll see that I actually have a Ruby on Rails server running. This is all just for my local testing. I'll talk about this in a minute. This is a guard process running to make things update automatically. So here's just a very terse version of C4. It's pretty exciting. It lets you add images that are almost any format. So here's a Canon file, and here's there's a Blackmagic Cinema file, and I think there's a Nikon NEF file. So you can see that it loads them very quickly, and actually it's syncing this to the cloud. And if I were interacting on this project with somebody else, they'd be seeing these images that fast as well. And there's lots of things I can do with this. I just did that with a add images action, but I could also just drag and drop a whole bunch of files in here if I wanted to. And right now, this is kind of a limited GUI so that I can show you some of the things that we can do. I can toggle the style to dark or light. I can change the scale of the images. And I'm not going to show you any of the other features. Most of this stuff is from a slightly old version of the GUI design. So I just wanted to show how we're doing some real-time programming. So why don't we get to that? So what I have going here is I have just a Rails server, and I'm going to stop that for a second. And over here is guard. I'm going to stop that too. And just cd into my home directory so that I can stop the RAM drive, because what I'm doing is I'm actually developing on a RAM drive, and there is a Ruby gem that I put together. It's very simple, just builds a RAM drive on Mac OS X systems, and lets you and it copies all of your files to it. If I do RAM dev down, it will shut it down. And then if I do, once you've got it configured, and you can, it's a freely available gem, so you can try it out. I'd love to get somebody to help me out with it and get it working on Linux and Windows too. So I say ramdev up, and it reads a configuration file. It allocates half my memory, but you could set that to whatever you like. And then it takes all of my project files, copies them to a RAM drive, and allows you to work with it on RAM, and it's syncing in the background. So it doesn't interrupt my workflow, but it monitors in the background, and every time there's a change made to the RAM drive, it'll sync that to the hard drive. So even if I lost power suddenly, it wouldn't lose any work. It just speeds up the workflow. So I have a lot of quick links around, so I can just type J client, and then I'm in the client development environment. And this is just a Qt project for the most part. Very little additional stuff in there, except that I've set it up to run with makefiles instead of the Qt Creator application. And over here, I want to go to the server. So I'll go here, and I'll go ahead and start it, Rails server. And then what I have here is I have guard, which is actually monitoring the files and rerunning the compilation step automatically if any of the files are modified for CoffeeScript, because I'm using CoffeeScript instead of JavaScript, in addition to the regular QML stuff. So I just run that, and it will monitor all the CoffeeScripts and recompile them as needed. And then we're ready to do some development. So the way I do this is I have a make design, which will make not the application, but a design interface. And let me show you real quick what the design looks like. You can see here that I have a class that, let's see, desktop. So it's a C4 window class, and it's got some very straightforward, if I do refresh, this is most of the important stuff that I'm going to talk about now, that it does. It just stores a QML engine. This is actually one of the objects it maintains, but it stores a QML engine and a Q file system watcher, and here's the fun tricky bit, that will watch the design file as I modify it and reload it and restart everything. And I don't have to just do one application for designing for the desktop. I could be doing multiple applications. So for example, let's do all of them and turn it on. I haven't been doing, this is an old setup, so I haven't been doing design for all these different ones. Right at the moment, I'm mostly doing desktop, so these won't be laid out right, but we can just see it anyway. So if I do make design, it'll make the interactive design version. As you can see, it gives me an iPad mini, an iPad and an iPhone layout, or obviously these could be for Android or whatever. These just happen to be the ones that I had handy so I could measure the screens and stuff. So, for example, the phone one, you can see, well, that layout wouldn't work if we use the same code. So in the environment that we're loading, I actually have, you can see here, iPhone Designer QML, and if I load that, you can see that there's different settings for the device type. So inside of the QML file, I could look at device type and see what device I'm drawing for at that moment, and make changes to the layout. A device scale, and some app width and height numbers, because this might be a Retina display, it might be, you know, a desktop with different desktop or laptop resolutions. So these are not necessarily indicative of a different platform, but they're good to know, and especially if you can get measurements of the device you're on in terms of pixels per inch or pixels per meter. Okay, so I don't need to do all of these right now to show you what I'm going to show you, so I'm going to quit that and change the design interface to only be the desktop one. Okay. All right, so here we are, basically the same thing I just showed you a minute ago, but I'm going to want to start doing some things. I can click through this and I can log in. Okay, what I'd like to do here, just to demonstrate, is I think I'd like to put a toolbar up here. I've got all these interactive sidebars and so forth, search bar. I have this little image scaling thing, but I don't like where it's placed over here. So I could go in and redesign what we see here in Illustrator or Photoshop. But what's nice about QML and the way that we've set it up here is I can do all this interactively, so I might as well just do the design work as the coding instead of doing it in 2 steps. So let me close out these. So everything gets done here in the View Designer. That opening animation is in this C4 start object, and it has an animation in it that gets triggered when this becomes visible. But I am going to just hide it. And now it's hidden immediately. But this is the thing that was triggering when it's done, that all the other things should be shown. And even that is contingent on being logged in and other things. So I'm going to do a quick thing to force it to be shown. So I'm going to make all of the default behaviors on the top bar, sidebar, and everything visible. So let me select all those, make them visible, and boom, they're visible. So as you can see, as I make changes and hit save, a couple of different things are happening. I'm not changing any CoffeeScript at this point, but just in case the guard file is actually running, just in case there's any CoffeeScript to recompile. And then it just, this is saved, and as soon as this is saved, because this view designer.qml is what the design application is actually watching for changes, it'll reload it and redraw. Okay, so now let's figure out how to put in a bar here. I prefer this over like a GUI-based interface designer because everything is live here. This is the real application. I have access to all the actual data, all the actual functions and support. I could jump into one of the CoffeeScript files and change logic. So I could, evaluate variables and just print them out on the screen if I need to know something or see how something's changing. So it's a lot more robust, I think, than using a interface designer. But your mileage may vary. You may prefer to have like a drag and drop interface and physically scaling widgets and so forth. And frankly, I think you could do that too. You would just start making widgets that respond to mouse events and then record the results of those things into maybe another file or into memory, and then you could just cut and paste it, or a number of different ideas that you could use there. Okay, so let's see. I guess the first thing I need to do is figure out where I'm going to put it, but maybe even before that, let's just do a rectangle. And we'll call it toolbar. And we'll make its color noticeable. Let's see. And of course it doesn't show up because we need it to be width is 100 and height is 100. And there it is, an orange rectangle. We could do something crazy like anchors, centering parent, and boom, it's in the middle of the screen. Okay, but that's not what we want to do. We want to anchor it under the top bar. So let's do that. Anchor all sides. The top will be top bar, and left and right will be parent, left and right, and there won't be a bottom. And I don't need width for that. Okay, that's good, but I don't want it top, I want it bottom. There, now it's the bottom of the top bar. Now my side bars are now attached to the wrong thing. So let's go to anywhere below here that is top bar. And make it a toolbar. Okay, now they're snapped below my new toolbar. And of course, it's a little bit too tall. So maybe, let's see, I've got my icons that are about 32 pixels, so maybe we'll make it 42 pixels. See if that's a good fit. Okay, now what do we want in this? Well, we're going to want a button, so let's do a rectangle and make it ID tool button. And we'll give it this background color since we don't need that one anymore. Well, actually, I guess we should call this transparent because we want to just inherit whatever the background color is. Okay, and it of course doesn't do anything, so let's make it height of 32 and a width 100, and there it is, and then we'll anchors, vertical center and parent, okay, and then we'll anchor it to the actually I think we only need to anchor it, whoops, to, where did I go? To the left, I think. And then I think we'll do left margin, maybe 10. Okay, so now it's standing off a little bit. I can even kind of adjust this so I don't have to even look that far. All right, so that might be our button. We'll come back to that in a second, but I want to put an image icon here. So all right, let's take this add images functionality here and put it in here. So image, let's say we want to add, so and it's going to be, well, let's just do source, and my images are all in my assets directory, which I can do a relative path for, like so. So there it is, and then in fact I could put this somewhere else, it'd be easier to find instead of right in the middle of my code. Oh, but let me cut that, paste that thing. Okay, so that'll be images, I think it's 32, then let's say dark, and it's plus.png. And I think that works. Nope, total failure. What don't you like? Cannot assign to, oh, I've misspelled, of course. There it is, and there's a little plus right there. Okay, so that's another little thing, is that you won't, if you crash the system, if you, this comes for free with Qt. In QML, it'll just spit out a parser error, and you can address that instead of like crashing, which is lovely. And so anyway, I was going to move this out of here. Oh, and it goes away, good. And then we lose the attachment points for these guys, so they all get crushed. And so the top thing is that, probably won't go quite that much to the top. We'll just go to here. That's kind of where things start. And then I'll even bookmark myself here. Okay. Now there it is. Now, so I don't like how big it is. I think I'm going to want that smaller, but let's come back to that. I'll do next. I'll do text. And the text is going to be add images. Perfect. And then it needs to be attached on the left. Anchors. All sides. I say left is, well, we don't have a name for it. ID. Tool button icon. So then on the left, tool button icon. And I'm being generic about these names on purpose, as opposed to like add images icon or something like that, because I'll show you in a minute how I move this to another file, and it just becomes a generic tool that I can use anywhere I want. So now I can say I want toolbar button right to attach to left to attach to right, and then top and bottom, let's just make it vertical, centered, anchors, vertical center. Okay, very good. Now up here, my width should probably be the combined effects. So I'm going to say tool button icon dot width plus, oh, we don't have one for that. So ID tool button text, or maybe even label. Okay, And, oh dear, what did I do? Oh, I haven't finished this operation. That works fine. And now plus, so there's this parameter called something like computed width or something like that, which is a nice little help feature. Is I can hit Control H and boom, I get my help text up, and I can see that it's called content width. That's the one I want. So I could probably have cut and pasted that, but content. Perfect, but maybe let's add a margin plus 10. Lovely. Probably offset the image as well. So let's put a anchors. My fingers are clumsy today. Left, parent, left. And then anchors, left, margin is 10. Okay, and then we'll have to add that to the overall width. So I'll make that 20. Okay, now that's good, and it should be adjustable. But yes, like I said, I don't like that icon that big. So let's make the image smaller. Width is, this is 32, so maybe 18. And that's non-uniform, so I could make it height, or I could use a constraint. I'll just do that. Okay, and then we see that we need to center it vertical, anchors, center. Okay, we're back again. And then I want to put a left margin here, so anchors, left. We could probably have some better text helpers. 10. Yeah, or maybe 5. Okay, and again add that here. Okay. All right, that looks like a more reasonable size. Now, we just need a mouse event. So let's go ahead and go to the parent of all of this, the tool button, and do a mouse area. And we'll say that hover is enabled, true. And we'll say on entered. Then we'll say that the toolbar, tool button background will become this orange color. And normally it will be transparent. Okay, so that's transparent, but, what do I want to say? Tool button color equals that. But we need to fill parent, anchors, fill parent, perfect, but it doesn't exit, so now let's exit, on exited, we'll do the transparent, back to transparent again. Okay, now you could obviously do whatever you want here. Oops, transparent. Okay, so now in, out, perfect. Could probably do another one on down, but I'll just go ahead and move on and say on clicked. And what should we do if we click? Oh, well, we should do the same thing we're doing over here, which is adding loading images. And there's the load image command or dialog box. So we'll say on click, do that. Okay. Perfect. Done. All right. So now I'd like to have this thing work anywhere I want it. So to be generic, we need to get rid of this specific action and put it over here, and I'll just comment it out. We'll bring that back in a second. Now what I would do to make this now a generic tool that I can use anywhere is I select the whole nothing. And oh, it's out. So this is just the button, not the whole toolbar. Okay, so I copy that. And I'm going to create a new file, which goes in source QML, and we'll call it C4 button. I might already have one. I'm doing this before. Tool QML. Okay. Nope. And so I paste that in there, and then I just copy the ubiquitous import. And then it says it's called C4 tool button. I can just now go here to where we have this, change this guy to a C4 tool button. And technically I could just remove everything. Like so. And it's still there because it's actually just pulling all of its data from here. So now what I like to do to help with this genericizing tools that I create, like this, is I will name the root. And actually, let's name all of them. No. There we go. Root, and then probably its attachments don't make sense here. So I will take these out of here. And when I do that, you'll see the margins jump, but I'll put them back here. And then we'll call that ID add images button. Okay. But of course, it will do everything except that it won't click because we didn't put that back in. So I need to make that a signal. So I will do signal called clicked. And in the mouse area down here on clicked, root clicked. Okay. But I don't need to do anything else in here. I'll just now that I've exposed that event, I can uncomment this and put it in the button. So I'm defining it here, and now does it work? It does. So that's lovely. Now a couple of more things to make this generic, and we could be done with it if we wanted. We could set the colors, but I think two important things, of course, is the image. So that text, let's make an alias for that. So we would say property alias, and it's to tool button label, or well, it's called text, and then it's tool button text, like so. And nothing changes, but if I do a text new, now it says new. Okay. And one other thing is the icon. So let's genericize this a bit by saying I'll just replace this word for the icon with whatever makes sense. So oops. So we'll say root dot icon. Okay. And then here, now you'll notice as I'm saving here, things don't get updated here because I'm only triggering off of this file. I could watch other files and trigger the load of this file based on anything changing, but I just found that it works better. You're usually doing stuff in these lower level files that you don't really need to watch, and you can easily just go here and do that when you need to. So of course the image broke, and it'll complain to me down here, and because I haven't finished doing this. So now I say property string icon, and let's give it plus as the default, and save it, and there it is. And then up here we could easily say, for example, one of the other icons. So minus, right? And there's like cloud up. problem. Works great. Okay, so that's the basic idea. And now I have my generic C4 tool button. So that's how we do real-time tool development and GUI development. So email me if you got any questions. I'd be happy to answer. Thanks for watching.